did have received a bid for Jadon Sancho from PSG. 17 million bid for central defensive midfielder, Colombian wonder kid Richard Rios. Pellistri looking set to leave the club, plus Matthijs de Ligt and Manuel Ugarte looking set to advance this week. These are some of the stories we will be discussing on this morning's show. But before we get into that, please do me one small favour. Smash a like on this episode. Let's try and see 1,000 likes on today's video. If this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel as well. I'm live every single day at 8:30, 1:30 and 6 p.m. UK time. So if you want to keep up to date with all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk, make sure you get involved. Everyone is welcome here on Daily Red Devil. Right, let's jump straight on into it then. Let's start the show by talking about Sofyan Amrabat. Obviously, we spoke on last night's episode about Manchester United rejecting a 20 million euros offer for Sofyan Amrabat. Now, the reason that this bid was rejected was because Manchester United feel like they can get him for a lot less. The 20 million euros figure was a release clause that Manchester United previously agreed with Fiorentina at the point of doing the loan deal this time last year. Now, he wants to leave the club. Apparently, he's not been training. He's told them he wants to go to Manchester United, and there is an understanding that Manchester United may consider going back in for him. But if they do, it will be at a heavily discounted rate. So I'm going to ask you this morning, should Manchester United go back in for not Jadon Sancho, for Amrabat? Let's do it now. Should United sign Amrabat? So anybody who's watching the show live, you can get involved in the comment section. And the poll as well. The poll is set up. Make sure you get involved. Me personally, I do like Sofyan Amrabat. I think he's a good squad player. Is he going to be the player that takes us from 8th to 1st? No. Is he somebody that in specific games you can utilise and is effective? Yes, I think he is. You know, we saw that in the FA Cup final against Man City. He did very well in that game, and he was a major part of helping us achieve that incredible victory against one of the best teams in world football at the moment. So I do like I do like Sofyan. I keep getting Sofyan Amrabat and Jadon Sancho confused. I do like Sofyan Amrabat, but I probably wouldn't pay more than like 5 million for him. Pounds, that is. What's that? Like 10 million euros tops. There's no reason for us to pay any more. He's got 1 year left of his deal. In January, we can get him for free. We can sign him on a pre-contract agreement. He turns 28 next year. Like, he doesn't really fit within Ineos's plan. Ineos's plan is players under the age of 25. It's young, hungry talents who we can bring in and have some level of resale in the future. Whereas Sofyan Amrabat isn't that. He's someone who comes in for 2 or 3 years and then will probably leave for free, you know? He turns 28. He turns 28 next month. Yeah, literally. In like a month from now, Sofyan Amrabat will be 28. So if we were to sign him next month, which is probably realistic, he'd be 28. You give him a 3 or 4 year contract. That means that you've probably got Amrabat playing at Man United at the age of 32. And I mean, already then, we can imagine us sat here in 2 years' time saying, Amrabat's past it, get rid of him. Like, so there isn't really any value in the signing other than in the immediate short term. You know, if Kobe Mainoo gets injured, if Casemiro gets injured, if someone gets injured in that team, having Sofyan Amrabat available would be a massive help. Or in certain fixtures where you're playing against a really, really tough opponent, having Sofyan Amrabat as some muscle in the midfield is a good option to have. So, in short, if we could get him for cheap, I would probably still do the deal. But 20 million euros, I think, is way too much, to be honest. Like, when you think of what other players you could get for that type of money, we're going to talk about one in a minute. I just don't really think it creates much value, to be honest. But it'd be interesting to see what you guys think. Should Manchester United sign Sofyan Amrabat? And also, I want to let me know, like, how much money do you think Sofyan Amrabat is worth? 20 million euros was the release clause. Manchester United said, no, we're not doing that. We're not paying the 20 million euros. How much do you think he is worth in the current market? Let me know in the comment section. Kerwin says there's also no value in getting Rabiot. Yeah, it's a fair point. And I think that's why I'm anti-Rabiot, you know? Rabiot and Amrabat, for me, only really make sense if we sell people like Eriksen, McTominay, if Casemiro went, if Hannibal goes. You know, if we get rid of another 4 midfielders this summer, then we probably will have to go and get Amrabat and Rabiot, because we're not going to be able to buy 4 £50 million midfielders. That's just not realistic. So at the point of recording this video, I think we need to really wait and see what happens with the likes of Eriksen, McTominay, Hannibal, and Casemiro. Because if all four of them stay, then signing Rabiot and Amrabat is not really that good, is it? Because it doesn't actually improve our team. It's just options. Like, if you're going to buy a midfielder, knowing that those four players are going to stay, it needs to be like a world-class midfielder. You know, it needs to be someone of a very, very good level. Someone like Emmanuel Ugarte, who is, you know, widely considered as one of the best CDMs in world football. Or someone like a João Neves, who's a generational talent. Like, that's what we need to be looking at, not Amrabat, who's probably just going to sit on the bench and then fight for places alongside Eriksen. Like, it just doesn't really make a lot of sense. But you can let me know what you think in the comment section. Should Manchester United go back in for Sofian Amrabat? Fabrizio Romano says, United do remain interested in Amrabat and are willing to discuss different conditions as Erik ten Hag really likes him. So there is probably a world where we go back in later in the market. As Fabrizio says, they're just not willing to pay the 20 million euros, which I 100% agree with. The 20 million euros release clause is like something that the Glazers would have done a year ago, right? They would have said, oh, we can get him for 20 million. Okay, cool, we'll do that. They wouldn't have tried to negotiate. They wouldn't, you know, they would have just given in to whatever the other club wanted. And we can already see here from Ineos, they've got this opportunity here to get a player for 20 million euros, but they're thinking, well, we could just wait a little bit. He wants to leave. He's handed in a transfer request. Let's see what options happen. There is, however, other clubs who are interested in Sofian Amrabat. So we do have to remember that. It's not a one-horse race. Teams like Fulham, it's kind of mid-table Premier League clubs that are interested in Amrabat. You know, there isn't any Chelseas or Arsenals or Liverpools or Man Cities. It's all, you know, the mid to bottom of the Premier League type teams, which kind of says a lot about Amrabat. For one of those teams, he would start, whereas for a Manchester United, he wouldn't start, you know? But yeah, you can keep getting your comments in about Amrabat. I'll let you know the results of the poll in a minute when we move on to the next part of the show. Everyone who's just joined the video, if you could do me a small favour and smash a like, that'd be really, really appreciated. I've set a likes target of 1,000 for today's video. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe to the channel. I'm live 3 times a day, free content. Make sure you get involved. Everyone is welcome. We're on the brink of hitting 32,200 subscribers. So everyone who's watching today who isn't subscribed, please go and do that right now. And let's make sure we hit that next target by the end of today's video. Right, I want to move over to a player called Richard Rios, who is actually an alternative to Amrabat. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. Before about an hour ago, I'd never heard of this player. Like, I'm not gonna pretend that I know who he is. So I have watched some videos on him. I have been doing some research since then. I spoke to a couple of people as well. He's 24 years of age, Colombian international, had a very good Copa America apparently. Plays his football at the moment for Brazilian club Palmeiras, and apparently Manchester United are going to submit an offer of £17 million for the player. He's predominantly a central defensive midfielder, and that's obviously why I said he is seen as an alternative to Amrabat. We wouldn't get Amrabat and this guy. I don't think he's an alternative to Manuel Ugarte. I think he's kind of like an extra option in that midfield, from what I've been told. But it does look like Manchester United are going to kind of go ahead or proceed with this deal. So these stories have all come out from Brazilian journalist this morning. Obviously, he plays for Palmeiras, and it says that Manchester United is set to offer £17 million for Palmeiras midfielder Richard Rios. It says United have already communicated their intention to bid for the player. The player wants to move, and Palmeiras are willing to sell. I mean, it sounds great, doesn't it? He's 24 years of age. He obviously fits into the kind of category of players that we're looking at. He's very physical. He's quite quick. He can play in multiple different positions as well, which I think is quite interesting. He can play as obviously a CDM, central midfielder, and he can play as a right-sided midfielder, which is a bit random, but okay. He's had 13 caps for Colombia, so he only joined the Colombian national team in October last year. So he's a player that's kind of started emerging quite recently. He's not been around for that long. Obviously, he's quite young. Played most of his career in Colombia, and then moved to Brazil, played for Flamengo, and then now plays for Palmeiras. So, yeah, he looks decent. If you go and watch some videos of him, he looks like a solid option. Is he as good as Amrabat? I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough of him to compare Amrabat and this guy, you know? Because the thing is, right, you can watch clips on YouTube, and realistically, they only put together the best bits, don't they? They're not going to show you him making mistakes, or they're not going to show you his worst bits. they're only going to show you literally a couple of minutes of like him looking absolutely amazing. So it's very difficult to give a full opinion on a player that you haven't watched the whole game of. I know I saw a couple of games at the Copa America, but I wasn't fully focusing on him. Do you know what I mean? Like, when you're not linked to a certain player, you kind of just watch the game as a whole, don't you? But as soon as you get linked to somebody, like when you watch a game, you watch it differently because you're really focusing on like one player, his movement, what he does off the ball and stuff. But obviously, I can't do that for 22 players in a game. Do you know what I mean? It's quite hard, isn't it? But I am going to go back and watch some of the games from Colombia later today, just kind of skim through them and see how he gets on. But from what I have seen of him and what I've heard of him, he does look like a decent option. Obviously, he's not going to be on big wages, which is good. And I think that this is Manchester United's fans effectively having their prayers answered, because the amount of people who come at me in the comment section and say, why are we not looking in the South American market? Why are we not, doing this? Why are we not doing that? Why do we not have any scouts that work in South America? Where is the Brazilian players? Where is the Colombian players? Like, I get asked that question constantly, and I don't know the answer, because the only player that we've signed directly from South America, as far as I can remember, is Pellistri, right? Garnacho was at Atletico Madrid before we signed him. Martinez was at Ajax. Who else do we have? Casemiro was obviously at Real Madrid. Like, we never really get the players before they get their big move. We always wait until they're in Europe, Like with Martinez, we waited until he was at Ajax and then we bought him for like 60 million. Casemiro, obviously he was at Real Madrid. We paid 60 million for him, etc., etc. Like, Pellistri's the only example where we bought a player. And actually, I'm just looking. Yeah, we bought Pellistri from a Uruguayan club. But other than that, over the last 10 years, I can't remember many players that we went and bought from like the Brazilian league or the Colombian league. So I am excited about this, and I'm interested to see more of how this story develops. But I'm not going to bother doing a poll on like who would you prefer, because I just think most people in this fan base won't have heard of him. And I think that's a fair comment to say. There might be a couple of people watching today who, love South American football and can give an opinion. And I would obviously welcome that. If you are that person, please let me know. But from what I've seen of him, as I said, he's an aggressive central defensive midfielder. He is seen as an additional player, not instead of Manuel Ugarte. So it'll be Manuel Ugarte and Richard Rios or Sofian Amrabat. I think effectively it's either this Richard Rios guy or Amrabat. It's not like we're going to get him and not Ugarte. It's kind of a bit of both. So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens. If there's anybody in the chat who is a South American expert, please do let me know. I would love to, get more of an in-depth opinion. I guess for me, if I'm going to look at it from an outside perspective, I think if you just look at the age thing, right? This Richard Rios guy fits within Ineos' kind of profile of players. They're looking for players under the age of 25. And obviously this Richard Rios guy is 24, whereas Amrabat's just about to turn 28. So I can see more likelihood in this Richard Rios guy purely because of his age, his profile, the resale value, all of those things which we've spoken about before. Whereas they'll very much see Amrabat as a short-term option because he's someone who will come in for a year, 2 years, and then will probably be moved on, So yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Obviously, it's something that only really broke last night. It's a relatively new story. I'll obviously keep you updated as and when we get more news on that. But let's move on over to Matthijs de Ligt, because there is some updates on that from Bayern Munich. The Bayern Munich president was speaking about de Ligt yesterday, and he has acknowledged that apparently Manchester United are in talks to sign de Ligt, which obviously we all know. But it's interesting when an actual person who works at the club comes out of this stuff, because it's all good and well journalists speculating and all the rest of it. But when the actual director or one of the directors at Bayern Munich comes out talking about it, it does cause more excitement. So he said this. He says it's possible that a defender will leave this summer. He says de Ligt is Dutch and the coach of Manchester United is Dutch. He says, I would have no problem if he stays, but personally, I would not sell Upamecano. I mean, imagine if you're de Ligt, right? Imagine if Erik ten Hag came out saying, personally, talking about Lindelof, and he says, blah, blah, blah. Lindelof is this, Lindelof is that. Personally, I would not sell Maguire, you know? Like, he's pretty much throwing De Ligt under the bus, really, isn't he? He's saying, I don't mind if he stays, but I wouldn't sell Upamecano, i.e. implying that he would sell De Ligt. I don't know, I thought it was a weird comment, and to say that De Ligt is Dutch, the coach of Manchester United is Dutch. But in short, we know the situation with De Ligt. We've spoke about it enough times before on the show. If Manchester United manage to sell Maguire and or Lindelof, then De Ligt will come in. But as it stands at the moment, we are still waiting to find out whether Lindelof will go. At the moment, the main club interested in Lindelof is Fenerbahce. The links with Maguire have gone very, very quiet, and I think he's going to be an incredibly difficult player to move on because of his wages, 200 grand a week, 1 year left of his contract. It's not going to be an easy deal to do because people are going to really, really struggle to cover his wages, you know? If you look at teams like Everton, you look at teams like West Ham, the teams who are supposedly interested, 200 grand a week is about double what their highest earning players are on at the moment. And I can't see a team like Everton wanting to break their wage structure for Harry Maguire. And that's no disrespect to Harry Maguire, but he's not a 200 grand a week player. I think at the very most, he's like a 100 grand a week player. And that's maybe even being kind. So yeah, I think the Maguire one's one obviously to keep an eye on, but it's going to be very difficult to follow through with. We've got over 1,200 people watching the show now, which is absolutely amazing. Please make sure to smash a like on the video if you haven't already. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe. We are going to talk about Jadon Sancho in a minute. There's someone just putting a Z in the comment section. I'm just going to put you on a timeout. Bye-bye. Right, let's move over to Jadon Sancho, though. Whilst I'm talking about Sancho, if you haven't liked the video and subscribed, please go and do that really, really quickly. And, right, so in relation to Jadon Sancho, this story literally just came out in the last couple of minutes, and it caught most people by surprise. And the headline this morning is that apparently PSG are now close to reaching an agreement on terms for Jadon Sancho. This is coming out from multiple different people this morning. Obviously, we know that Manchester United are already in talks with PSG over a deal for Manuel Ugarte. We know that Manchester United are in talks with PSG over a deal for Xavi Simons. And Jadon Sancho to PSG makes a lot of sense. They need new wide players. And Jadon Sancho famously said when he joined Manchester United that he was bought as a right winger, but he actually prefers to play on the left. Does anybody remember that? I think it was Ollie who said it as well. Ollie said, we've bought Jadon as a right winger, but he doesn't like playing on the right. He wants to play on the left. And obviously Rashford was playing on the left at that point. And it caused loads of uproar because, you know, the fans were saying, why the hell have we paid £73 million for Sancho, who wants to play in the same position as Marcus Rashford, who at that point was obviously in form. He was one of our best players. But Sancho to PSG, I think it makes a lot of sense. He's a big name player. He's got a big brand. And I think realistically, if Jadon Sancho went to the French league, I think he would do really, really well. I do. I think he would tear it up because he is a good player. It's not whether Jadon Sancho is a good player is the question for me. It's his mentality, his work rate, his attitude. Those are the things that the fan base question, right? Because he is a talented player. But yeah, it looks like this one could happen. Yeah, someone in the chat saying it was Ole Gunnar Solskjaer who said that. Yeah, and obviously we know for a fact that Kylian Mbappe's gone, right? Kylian Mbappe's gone to Real Madrid, and PSG have a massive hole on the left side of their midfield. They have no one there to play in that position now, really, do they? And Jadon Sancho going into that team, I think would be absolutely perfect. So let me read out all of the stories that have come in about Sancho. So the story this morning says that PSG have made an offer for Jadon Sancho. It says that Jadon Sancho is very excited about the project presented by PSG and wants to join the club. It then says that PSG are now close to reaching an agreement for Jadon Sancho. In relation to money, that's still the kind of missing fact of this deal. But if you think we're trying to get Manuel Ugarte, they want 70 million euros. We want to pay 50 million euros. Is there a world where we sell Sancho to PSG for 50 million and then we buy Manuel Ugarte for 50 million? I think that has a lot of legs in it. I'm going to do a poll. Let's do a poll quickly, shall we? So the results of the last poll, for those of you who are wondering, where's the poll gone? It's disappeared. Let's do a new poll. Should United sell Sancho to PSG? And we know that PSG have got an abundance of money. Like, that's just a known fact, isn't it? They're one of the richest clubs in the world. In relation to the last poll, 61% of people watching the video think we should sign Amrabat, and 39% of people think we shouldn't sign Amrabat. So it's slightly in favour of signing him, but there is still, nearly 40% of the fan base in this community don't want Sofian Amrabat, which is obviously fine. But yeah, make sure you get involved in the poll. So far, 96% of people watching the video want Jadon Sancho to be sold to PSG. Crazy. So go and get involved in that poll now, and make sure you get in the comment section as well. Should Manchester United sell Jadon Sancho to PSG? I'd be very interested to see what other Manchester United fans have to say. Obviously, the wages won't be a problem for Jadon Sancho. He's on about 250k a week, I think, at Manchester United. Whereas if you look at PSG pay crazy wages. So no wonder he wants to go there. He'll probably get a pay rise. Like, for example, Dembele is on nearly 400 grand a week. Marquinhos is on 350 grand a week. Like, there's no issue whatsoever with Jadon Sancho's wage demands and PSG, because their wage bracket is just absolutely mad, So yeah, PSG, Jadon Sancho, that's definitely one to watch. Me personally, my stance has been this. And you know what? I have to applaud Ineos, because they've done exactly what I thought they should do, and it's worked. 1 week ago, Jadon Sancho was an outcast. He was, wasn't he? He wasn't training. He'd fallen out with the manager. We were literally begging people to take him, and nobody wanted him. People were saying, we'll give you half of his wages and we'll take him on loan. We're not going to give you any money. And that was the reality that we all found ourselves in, And there was people screaming at me, sell Jadon Sancho, get rid of him. And what did Manchester United decide to do? They decided to make public knowledge that Jadon Sancho is back in training, that Erik ten Hag and Jadon Sancho have held positive talks, and they've cleared the air. And for me, I just saw that as a publicity exercise. I saw that as a way of retaining Jadon Sancho's value. Because literally 7 days ago, his value was nothing. Nobody was willing to pay a transfer fee for him, because they saw an opportunity to come to Manchester United and take a player who was an outcast, a player who wasn't training and fallen out with the manager, and get themselves a good deal. Dortmund were putting out Twitter posts about him, weren't they? Saying that, the real Jadon Sancho's back and all the rest of it. Even they didn't want to pay any money for him. They were literally trying to troll at Manchester United on Twitter, weren't they? They were coming at us, literally tagging the Manchester United account, saying like, oh, we know what Jadon Sancho's game's about and stuff after the Champions League final, right? They do that, but they're still not even willing to pay any money. Whereas 1 week later, you fast forward, he's back in training. I think he played quite well against Rangers. I know some people were like he was rubbish, but I thought he was all right. I thought he did a good job, right? He's back in training. He's working hard. Him and the manager are friends again, apparently, although they apparently haven't apologised. And now what happens? Jadon Sancho is having offers from PSG, and is now apparently closer to agreeing a deal. And you have to applaud Ineos for this. You do. Because they probably said to Ten Hag, now this is just me speculating, but hear me out. They probably sat Erik ten Hag down and said, we know that you want Sancho gone. We want him gone as well. But what we need to do is we need to make it publicly look like everything's all right. Get him back in pre-season. Get him playing a few games. He'll probably put in a good performance like he did against Rangers, I think. And then before you know it, teams will be offering us money for him. And that's exactly what's happened here. PSG have now come to the table and have said, we want to sign Jadon Sancho. Let's do a deal. Whereas 1 week ago, PSG would have probably knocked on the door and said, we'll take him on loan. You can pay half of his wages. Take it or leave it. And that would have been our only option. So I really, really applaud Ineos for the creativity here, because I know a lot of people in the fan base were very, very upset when Jadon Sancho came back. They felt very hurt. They felt like they'd been betrayed. And I get it. I understand how you feel. And I agree. It was a betrayal from Jadon Sancho. But I genuinely believe that this was just a publicity exercise from Ineos to get him back in the shop window and to retain his sell-on value. And they've done that. So we have to give them some credit here. It's very, 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 very clever. We can applaud them for signing players. We can applaud them for, getting rid of players, whatever. But this isn't something that the Glazers would have done. I don't think the Glazers are capable of doing something like this, They wouldn't have the brains to do it. The footballing brains. I mean, from a business perspective, obviously the Glazers know what they're doing. But yeah, I personally now would look to do some sort of swap deal. They want Jadon Sancho. We paid £73 million for him 2 seasons ago. Let's take 50 million. We'll take 50 million and then we'll go and buy Ugarte for 50 million. I think that's a fair exchange, I I do. I would have no issue with that whatsoever. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you guys think. Like, are you happy that Jadon Sancho looks like he's going to leave Manchester United? Do you think he should stay? Like, what's your honest opinion? Let me know in the comment section below. I've given mine. I do think he should go. And I think if we can sell him to PSG and use that money to get Manuel Ugarte, that's very, very clever. Because it allows us to then spend more money in other areas. It increases our budget for this window. It removes somebody from the wage bill who's on absolutely astronomical wages. I think Sancho's like the third highest paid player at Manchester United. And removing that from the wage will massively increase our profit and sustainability options. He's on 250k a week, right, Jadon Sancho? I've got his wages up here. But he also has a bonus of around 100k a week. So that might be if he scores a goal, if he plays, if he gets an assist. So he can earn up to 350k a week, Sancho. Minimum he earns is 13 million a season. Maximum he can earn is 18.5 million a season. That's crazy. Crazy, crazy money. And we know for a fact that Manuel Ugarte, his wages are like less than 100k a week at PSG. So you're getting rid of a player who's on 350k a week, has fallen out of the fan base, fallen out of the manager, and you're effectively then swapping him for Manuel Ugarte, who is exactly what we need, a specialist CDM on a third of the wages, who has a point to prove, is young, hungry, and ready to come and play for Manchester United. So I am really, really happy about this. I applaud Ineos for how they've handled this situation, and obviously I'll keep you updated on the channel to see how it progresses over the next couple of days. Maybe we get Xavi Simons as well. We haven't even really spoke about that. Maybe we get Xavi Simons. Obviously, we know that Xavi Simons wants to leave. We know that Manchester United are pushing for him. Is there a world where we do that? Like, is there a world where we go to PSG and say, we want Xavi Simons and we want Manuel Ugarte. We'll sell you Sancho for 50 million. We'll buy Ugarte for 50 million and we'll take Simons on loan for a season. Imagine if that happens. That would be one of the biggest... That would have been one of the most amazing transfers I've seen in the last 10 years if they managed to pull that off, you know? So yeah, big ups to Ineos. I'm impressed so far. I really, really am. Obviously, they've got to get the deal over the line first. Because at the moment, it does look like it's advancing quickly. There's a bit more here as well, actually, just to bring you. This is coming out from a French journalist who reports for L'Equipe. Very reliable journalist. One of the most reliable French journalists. And he's saying that apparently PSG have inquired for multiple players from Manchester United. And apparently, the two players that they want, it's not Marcus Rashford, it's Jadon Sancho and Bruno Fernandes. Those are the two players that they're interested in. And he's acknowledging that apparently Manchester United have asked for Manuel Ugarte and Xavi Simons. I mean, that would be mad. If Man United sold Jadon Sancho and Bruno to PSG, that would rustle some feathers in the fan base, wouldn't it? I mean, would people do that? Oh, that's a crazy swap deal. Let's do a poll. Why not? Let me set it up. Because, I mean, effectively, Xavi Simons plays in the same position as Bruno Fernandes, doesn't he? Right? He does. He's a central attacking midfielder. And obviously, Manuel Ugarte is a CDM, but he's what we need. And Jadon Sancho, we don't really need. So let's do a poll. Let's see what people think. It's obviously a bit of a hypothetical one, but apparently they are interested in Bruno as well. Whilst I set up the poll, we've got over 1,400 people watching. If you haven't liked the video yet, please go and do that. It's completely free content. It really, really helps the channel to bring in more people. So please make sure you do that. And if this is your first time watching, please do subscribe. I've just dropped a link in the chat to do that. We're less than 5 away from 32,200. So please go and subscribe whilst I set the poll up. So in relation to my last question, 90% of people watching the show this morning think we should sell Jadon Sancho to PSG. That's crazy. And then the next question is going to be this. It's going to be on Bruno Fernandes. And this, I think, will be a little bit more mixed. Would you sell Bruno to PSG? We know that PSG have got a lot of money, don't we? Like, the amount of money they've saved from Kylian Mbappe leaving is crazy. He was on like £2 million a week. Like 100 million a season in wages alone. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what people think about Bruno Fernandes. My take on Bruno is this, right? I like Bruno. I think he's our best player, but he is aging, as we all are, of course. He's 30, I think, next month. He wants a new contract. He wants to be the highest earner at the club. A new contract for Bruno is going to be him here for the next 4 or 5 years. So he'll be on probably 300, 350k a week at the age of 33, 34. Now, maybe Bruno Fernandes is still the same level player at that age. It's possible. But if Ineos are coming out publicly saying that their philosophy is building this young team of players under the age of 25, is rewarding Bruno with a new 4-year contract at the age of 30 on massive wages, does that really fit with what Ineos' philosophy is? I don't think it does, personally. And I think if there is a genuine option here to sell Bruno Fernandes for mega money, we're not talking like 20 million, I'm talking 70, 80, 90, 100 million plus, yeah? Where we would actually then make a profit on versus the amount we paid for him. I think you have to consider it, you know? Because there are other players out there on the market who are younger and fit within what Ineos are looking for. Players like Xavi Simons, Musiala, Florian Wirtz. Like I'm obviously naming just players off the top of my head, but yeah, we paid about 55 million pounds for Bruno. So if you could get 80, 90 million and you make a decent profit on him, I think you have to consider it. I do. But obviously if you did that, you have to bring in like a very, very good replacement. There is always the potential though that I spoke about this before, right? That that Mason Mount, and I know people are going to be like, what the hell are you talking about? Mason Mount's rubbish. Like, get him out of my club. Like, I get it. People are upset about Mount. But why did we sign Mason Mount? Answer me that question. We paid £60 million for Mason Mount, 24 years of age. Gave him the number 7 shirt, probably our most decorated shirt in our history. What position does Mason Mount play? The same position as Bruno Fernandes. Bruno Fernandes doesn't get dropped. He's never injured. I honestly thought that when we signed Mason Mount, the only reason for signing him was that they thought in the next few years, Bruno's going to leave and he's the replacement. He will be the poster boy for Manchester United. He will be our new number 7. Like, that has to have been their thinking. Because why else would they have paid 60 million for him? It makes no sense. So maybe, I know this is an unpopular opinion, but maybe we have our Bruno Fernandes replacement already. I don't know. I don't know if I want to believe in that. Benito, thank you for your super chat, mate. He says, hey, nice content as always. Are you going to bring in video calls in the future with United fans, or will it just be me talking the whole time? Just curious. Mate, we've got some massive plans for this channel. Absolutely huge. I've got some really big meetings this week with other people who are going to be coming on board. So there's going to be all sorts of different content when the season starts. To this point, we've only been going for 1 year, and the only face that you've seen and the only voice that you've heard is me. But I don't want to say too much. I don't want to get too excited. But yeah, we're going to have all sorts of content, you know? So I know you're probably sick to death of seeing me, but yeah, soon is all I can say. That's all I'm going to say for now, soon. But thank you for your super chat, mate. I really, really appreciate it. And thank you for the suggestion. And, you know, thank you for wording it in a respectful way. And I hope that I've answered your question. Big things are coming. That's all I'll say for now. So yeah, watch this space. Welcome to Saf, who's just joined the Daily Red Devil Members Club. Thank you very much for your support, my friend. I hope you are doing well. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what people think about Bruno Fernandes, you know? The thing with Bruno is, right, I like Bruno, I really, really do, but I just worry that if he wants this big new contract, do you give Bruno the big new contract at the age of 30? That's more of the question here. Do you know what I mean? It's difficult, isn't it? Because if we don't give him a new deal now, next year he'll only have 1 year left of his contract. And then he's probably worth way less than he is now. Like, if they're going to sell him, they need to sell him this summer. And this is a question. It's not me saying sell him. I'm saying if Ineos decide they don't want to give Bruno Fernandes a new contract, if they want to get any value for him in the market, now would be the time to sell him. And that's a fact. But at the same time, I'm acknowledging that he's our best player. So it's a very, very difficult one for them to decide. Yeah, more stories about Bruno Fernandes coming out, saying that PSG have approached Manchester United for Bruno Fernandes. They strongly appreciate him. It'd be interesting to see what happens. You can see PSG going mad this summer. They're already getting Victor Osimhen. They're getting João Neves. We know that Bruno Fernandes and João Neves are like really good friends, aren't they? And that Bruno was trying to bring him to Manchester United. That's obviously not gone through. He's going to go to PSG. Imagine if they do that, right? PSG get Victor Osimhen, João Neves, Bruno and Sancho as their 4 signings this summer. Like, that would be mad. That's like 4 superstar signings, isn't it? And PSG have it in them. Like, last year, they spent 100 million on Kolo Muani. 100 million. I mean, that's mental. I'm sorry. 100 million euros on Kolo Muani. And I think they spent about 95 on Gonzalo Ramos. So they've got the money. We know that. They will spend big this summer. And it's just whether Manchester United decide that, giving him a new contract at the age of 30 is the correct decision. So we'll wait and see what happens. Let's see what else people are saying in the chat. Someone says PSG don't want Sancho. Who told you that? Well, a journalist who reports for L'Equipe, RMC, he's one of honestly, the best French journalists around, is reporting that this morning. So I don't know who's told you that we're not interested in him, but a man who knows a lot more about French football than me and is a professional journalist, over 300,000 followers on Twitter, is reporting that story this morning about Jadon Sancho and about Bruno Fernandes. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he's making it up, but he is reliable from what I can tell you. He is a Paris-based journalist as well. Reports for L'Equipe, reports for RMC Sport. He reports for all of the biggest French outlets. So he's obviously got this information from somewhere. He wouldn't just put that up just for fun. Let's see what else he's saying, because I've got all his tweets here. He says, Manchester United and PSG have things to talk about this summer. Ugarte, Simmons to Manchester United, and Sancho and Bruno to PSG. There you go. I mean, you can already see the conversations going down behind closed doors, can't you? Like, we want two of their players, remember. We want Ugarte and Xavi Simmons. We're desperate for Simmons. We're desperate for Ugarte. And PSG wants Sancho and Bruno. Like, it's how the window works. These people are having conversations anyway, and they're probably saying exactly what I'm saying. They're probably saying, what's your plan for Bruno? Are you going to give him a new deal? If you're not, we might be interested in him. Like, that's probably all that's going on at this stage. They're just kind of trying to read the room and see whether it's worth even putting in a bid. Because if they say we're just about to give him a new 6-year contract, like, there's no point bidding then, is there? But yeah, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. Obviously, there's always crazy stories in the transfer window. There's always going to be things... there's always going to be things that come out about clubs. See what else we got here. Somebody in the chat says, what about Dani Olmo as a replacement? Yeah, Dani Olmo would be a good replacement. Dani Olmo's still available for about 60 million, apparently. Although his release clause has expired, apparently Red Bull Leipzig have some sort of understanding with the player that they will sell him for around 60 million if an offer comes in. I wanted to bring something in quickly about Mason Greenwood as well. I thought that the Mason Greenwood saga was over, but apparently Manchester United have inserted a buyback clause in the Mason Greenwood deal. And this is probably going to send people into meltdown this morning. But this is coming up from James Ducker from The Telegraph. And it says that Manchester United have included a buyback clause in Mason Greenwood's contract with Marseille. However, the prospect of it being activated remains unlikely at the moment. I'm sorry. I thought the door was closed. I am sorry. And some of you are going to be probably jumping around in your room. And some of you are probably going to be banging your head on your desks. But it is a news show. I bring you guys the news. Obviously, at the moment, it means nothing. All it means is that Manchester United are... I am surprised that that's happened, though, is all I'll say. You know? And it still tells me that there is a slight desire to bring him back in the future. There's no reason why you would have a buyback clause otherwise, really, is there? Unless, of course, it's really small. Like, I don't know, it's like a 40 million buyback clause. And Man United think we could buy him and then sell him for more in the future, maybe. But I don't know why they do that, because they've got the sell-on clause as well, you know? So it did catch me by the surprise, though. Obviously, we'll wait and see what happens with that one. I don't think we'll see Mason Greenwood back, but yeah. Let's see what else we got in the chat this morning. Let's read out the results of the poll then, shall we, quickly? So the question I asked you was this: would you sell Bruno to PSG? 70% of people say no, and 30% of people say yes. And I think that's probably fair. You know, if you go into that question without all of the context, I would say no. But when you factor in new contract, 30 years of age, massive wages, blah, 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 I think it maybe would have swung the vote a little bit. But yeah, you can let me know in the comment section. Would you sell Bruno Fernandes now, or would you give him a new 4-year deal at the age of 30 on 350k a week? Let me know what you think. Some people in the chat are saying I am jumping around my room, and then other people in the chat are saying I'm banging my head on the desk. That's obviously about the about the Mason Greenwood buyback clause. So yeah. Okay, let's move on from that though. Let's move on to the next topic. What have we got up next? I mean, obviously, most of the show today has been focused on Jadon Sancho and Bruno. We spoke about Amrabat. I wanted to just a quick minute as well. I wanted to say best of luck to Rafael Varane, who is set to join Italian Serie A club Como on a free transfer. It's obviously the club that Cesc Fabregas is the manager of. Yeah, I wish him all the best. And I'm going to be honest with you, I think him joining this club makes Ineos look very, very good. Because if anybody doesn't know who this club are, I mean, I didn't until a month ago, they literally just got promoted from Serie B. They're a club who are probably going to be fighting for relegation. They've got rich owners, but they're not going to be like in the Champions League or anything. You know, they've literally just come up from Serie B. Cesc Fabregas has just been appointed their manager. They've got loads of money. I don't know why. All right, so they're owned by the people who own the Bank of Asia, which are apparently the top 5 wealthiest family in the world, Indonesian owners. So they've got loads and loads of money, right? And Varane's just signed for them. The point I'm trying to make here is some Manchester United fans were like, why the hell did Varane not get a new deal? It's a disgrace, blah, blah, blah. There wasn't any big clubs who wanted to sign Varane by the looks of it, you know? And he's gone to a club who seems like an exciting project. He's probably going to be paid handsomely, but realistically, they're going to be fighting for relegation. You know, they've only just been promoted from the Serie B. So, yeah, I think it does make Ineos' decision look good that they didn't give him a new deal on 350k a week for a player who missed 50% of our games like every season. So, yeah, I wish Varane all the best. It looks absolutely beautiful there. If anybody's... Go and have a look at the stadium that this team play in, Como. It looks absolutely beautiful. Go and have a look. Right, let's talk a little bit about Pellistri then, shall we, quickly, before I end the show. Before I do that, we've got over 1,300 on the live stream now, which is amazing. I've got a likes target of 1,000 for today. We're over halfway there, so everybody go and like who hasn't already. And we're now only 2 away from 32.2k subscribers. So please go and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's make sure we hit that by the end of today's video. We can definitely do it, so go and do that right now. And then let's talk a little bit about Pellistri. Let me just have a sip of my tea. Okay, cool. Pellistri. So we spoke about this on the show last night when the story first broke, and apparently Panathinaikos, which is obviously the Greek side, are apparently close to agreeing a deal for Pellistri. This seems a little bit strange to me, right? I think Pellistri should be sold purely because he's not going to get opportunities. But is there not any clubs with more money who we could try and sell him to? Because I had a look at this yesterday, right? Panathinaikos, like, Greek football doesn't have massive amounts of money, does it? We all know that, compared to the Premier League. And I was looking yesterday at what the record signing was for Panathinaikos. I always like to do this because when we're linked to players, I try and gauge how reliable it is versus like their past activity. You can try and identify patterns. Like, for example, McTominay. He was linked to Galatasaray for weeks. And I kept coming on the show and saying to you, like, McTominay to Galatasaray doesn't make sense. Because Galatasaray's record signing was like 15 million euros. And that was 10 years ago. And after that, they're paying like 7 million euros for players. McTominay, right? Fenerbahce. And I just kept hearing the story of McTominay going to Turkey. And I thought, like, how is that going to be possible when United are asking for £30 million? Like, that would be over double their highest transfer. And I think it feels like the same for me with Panathinaikos. Obviously, they're a massive club in Greek football, but their biggest ever signing was Djibril Cissé in 2009 for 8 million euros. What's that, like £5 million, £6 million? And I just don't really see the benefit of Manchester United selling Pellistri for such a small amount of money. It just doesn't make any sense to me. But should we do a poll on it? So in relation to the last poll, 70% of people watching today's video say we should not sell Bruno Fernandes to PSG, and 30% say we should. I'm going to set up a poll quickly on Pellistri. Give me 1 second. Obviously, if you're watching back on repeat, you can let me know in the comment section. Should United sell Pellistri? Okay, so for anybody watching the video live, you can get involved in the poll. We've got a super chat coming in from Alex. He says, if Bruno and Sancho leaving paid for Olmo, Ugarte, and MDL, Matthijs de Ligt, would you take that? Then others leaving could pay for a new fullback. Keep up the great work. I mean, that's a really good question. I'll do that as a poll in a minute. Would I do that? So would I sell Bruno and Sancho if it meant that we could sign Dani Olmo, Ugarte, and Matthijs de Ligt? Yeah, I would. 100%. 1,000% sure. Definitely. Ugarte, we need a CDM. He's perfect. Matthijs de Ligt, we desperately need another centre-back. Definitely bring him in. And Dani Olmo, I think, has been absolutely unbelievable for Leipzig and was unbelievable at the Euros. I think he's just turned 26. He fits the age profile. He's good enough to start for Man United. Man City want him. Barcelona want him. So yeah, I would do that deal. I think if that was a genuine option that was on our table, you know, that PSG said we'll give you 50 million for Sancho, we'll give you 80 million for Bruno, and then that allowed us to then spend that money on Dani Olmo, Ugarte, and De Ligt. I think it's a no-brainer for me personally because there was one player you missed out of that. Maybe as part of that deal, we could get Xavi Simons on loan. So it could be that you go from Sancho and Bruno to Dani Olmo for 60 million euros. That's what he's available for. You get De Ligt, and then you get Ugarte, but then you also get Xavi Simons on loan. So yeah, I think that's 4 players in exchange for 2. And it probably would work out. Because when you think that Bruno's on 250k a week, Sancho's on 250k a week, that's £500,000 a week in wages, right? Xavi Simons is only on about 30k a week. Dani Olmo's on about 60k a week. De Ligt, I think, wants about 150 to come to United, and Ugarte's on about 100. So those 4 players, Dani Olmo, De Ligt, Ugarte, and Xavi Simons, their wages combined would be like just over half of what Bruno and Sancho earn at United. So even though the transfer fees for those 4 players would be slightly more, over a 4 or 5 year period, which is how you've got to look at transfers, it would actually probably work out less money. So I would do that because I think Man United needs so many players in so many different positions. And I realised something the other day, and I think this is going to... People might agree with me, or this might upset some people, but I realised something the other day that Man United need more players like Mason Mount, Ahmad, Sancho, those types of players. And what I mean by those types of players, I mean players who protect the ball at all costs. Players who do everything in their power to bring other people into the game. They're not greedy. Those are the types of players we need. And all of the players you've just described there, Dani Olmo, Ugarte, De Ligt, and also Xavi Simons, are those types of people. So yeah, somebody says Xavi Simons is crap. Really? Do you really think that? We've got another super chat coming in from NOK. Thank you for your support, by the way, guys. I really appreciate that. NOK, oh no, sorry, that's the currency. It's coming in from Ellen. Sorry, I thought your name was NOK. Is that Norwegian money? Let me know. So Ellen has come in with a super chat saying we need Bruno for 1 more season. We need him to set the standard and be a daddy for all these kids, like the stream guys. I hear you. The thing is with Bruno, right? It's a very, very difficult one to come out with a 100% answer on, you know? The only thing that I keep going back to is Bruno wants a new deal. He wants to be the highest earned player. He wants to be the highest earning player at the club. And if Ineos don't want to do that, then Bruno's probably going to want to leave. So it might actually be that the decision is out of our hands, you know? Because Bruno deserves to be the highest earning player at the club. It's a really, really complicated situation. Because Bruno deserves to earn more than Rashford. He deserves to earn more than Casemiro, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm not doubting Bruno's ability and Bruno's work rate and his mentality and his ability to always be fit and all the rest of it. He's our best player. And he deserves to earn that type of money. But the question that just keeps going round and round in my head is it sensible at the age of 30 to make Bruno Fernandes your highest earning player on 350k a week? And there's no way we can know the answer to that. We might be sat here in 4 years and Bruno still might be our best player. Or we might be sat here in 1 year, 2 years, and people are like, oh, why did we give him that new contract on massive wages? Oh, we need to find someone else now, and we'll be stuck with it. Do you know what I mean? There's no right or wrong answer, and we all have opinions. And it's really, really difficult, you know? But yeah, thank you for your super chat. I really appreciate it. And it's a good question and it's a good point. We do need leaders in that chat in the club. But some people don't think Bruno's a leader either. Some people think he strops too much. He moans. He's negative. Like, he's a very controversial player. As much as he has quality, he also has negatives. And it's difficult, isn't it? It's really difficult. Whereas if it was like Kobe Mainu, everyone would be like, nah, don't sell Kobe Mainu. Not a shadow of a doubt. Tell him to do one. You know? Because everything's positive around Mainu at the moment. Whereas with Bruno, there is positives and negatives to him. But yeah, it's a very, very difficult one to give a 100% answer on. And we'll wait and see what happens. We'll wait and see whether PSG actually seriously put in this bid. And we'll wait and see whether Jadon Sancho ends up at PSG. My first priority would be this, though. I'll say this. Jadon Sancho, ship him off to PSG. And then bring in Manuel Ugarte. And then if they want to do a separate deal involving Bruno, if we can get a suitable replacement, a Dani Olmo, maybe we can get Dani Olmo for 60 million euros. That's his value. And we can get Xavi Simons on loan. I would probably do it. And that's my take on it. So the immediate focus, get Sancho off to PSG, clear his wages, get him out of the club, bring in Manuel Ugarte. And then if PSG are desperate for Bruno, maybe we do that deal after. But again, you can let me know what you think in the comment section. We'll wait and see what happens. Jono says, I'm loving the show, mate. I'm a newcomer. Love the content. Thank you very much. And everyone who's new today, make sure you subscribe. It doesn't cost any money. It's completely free content on this show. Very interactive. It's very positive. There's never any toxicity on here ever. We share opinions. I read out comments. Even if people disagree with me, like, I always have a conversation. That's what I want to do on here. That was the only reason I made this channel, was to talk to other Manchester United fans and to have conversation, you know? And we do that every morning, and I love it. So big ups to all of you. And everyone who's new, welcome. Let's see what else people are saying. Right, let's see what else we've got. I'm just going to double check if there's any other news to go through, because I think I'm coming to the end of the show, but just as I usually come to the end, more stuff breaks. And that's always what happens in the morning. Oh yeah, I wanted to talk about this. Apparently Manchester United are confident of completing the deal for Chido Obi Martin today or tomorrow. That's really, really positive. Apparently Dortmund and Bayern Munich are trying to sign him, but it looks like he's going to sign for Manchester United. This is the 16-year-old striker from Arsenal. His contract expired at Arsenal. They tried to give him a massive new pay rise. He said no. He came to Old Trafford, I think, on Wednesday. Had a tour from Ruud van Nistelrooy. He wants to join the club. He is widely regarded as one of the most exciting strikers in world football, obviously in his age bracket. I'm not saying he's, comparable to Haaland or to Mbappe. Like, he's only 16, but in his age bracket, he is unreal. He scored 7 goals in one game in 60 minutes. And I think he got 32 goals last season in the under-18s Premier League. So it looks like Man United are going to get their man. So that's really, really excited to see. As soon as we get a Here We Go, whatever, I'll bring you that. And I will also do a video on him at some point, just to give you a bit more of an in-depth analysis on the guy. Because I know a lot of people, including myself, before a week ago, I'd never heard of him. But since I heard the links, I've just been watching loads of videos, doing research, just to try and understand who he is as a player. And also actually try and understand whether there's a genuine chance that he'll actually get into the first team. Because it's all good and well us signing a 16-year-old, but if that player's never going to even play for the first team, it's like, why are we talking about it? But from what I can see, he is the real deal, and he is somebody who is widely reported to kind of be, good enough to play for first teams. Jono's come in with a super chat. He says, loving the channel, mate. Great content. Keep it up. I really, really appreciate it. I do. I really appreciate it. And thank you very much. Then we've got John. We've got another John in the chat saying, new subscriber from Kenya. Welcome, mate. I hope you are good. Somebody says, do you think we could get Vinicius Jr. or Rodrigo? No. Not a hope in hell. As much as I would love that to happen, mate, the chances of us getting Vinicius Jr., I would say, is probably like 1%. Vinicius, Rodrigo, they love Real Madrid. They're never going to leave Real Madrid for Man United. Never. I'd be very surprised. But you never know, do you, in football? You never know. But I would say 1%. Crazy things happen, don't they? We didn't think we were going to get Lenny Yoro when we got him, so never say never. I just can't see Manchester United and Ineos looking at players like that. They're going for cheaper options. They're going for players who aren't going to cost you 100, 200 million and want crazy wages. Like that, the model's changed. If this was a year ago and we hadn't qualified for the Champions League, then I wouldn't be surprised if the Glazers were trying to sign Rodrigo and Vinicius and spent all summer trying to sign him and then get an offer accepted for crazy money and then he rejects us. You know, like that's something the Glazers would have tried to do. But under Ineos, I don't think we'll see that. Like all you have to do is go and look at Dan Ashworth's past signings, because that kind of shows you who Dan Ashworth is as a man. Like his best ever signings, right? Let me go through them quickly. Trossard, not a high profile player. Lamptey, not a high profile player. Caicedo, obviously he bought him before he went to Chelsea. Mitoma, like he identifies talent. He doesn't really go for the big name players. Xerxes not really a big name player. Lenny Yoro isn't really a big name player. Manuel Ugarte, I don't think is really a big name player. De Ligt maybe is kind of, but I think Man United just see that as an opportunity to get somebody under their market value, etc., etc. You know, like we're going for young, hungry players who want to prove themselves. Whereas the Glazers model was bring in big names, big social media followings, come in, sell loads of shirts. If it doesn't work out on the pitch, it doesn't matter. Whereas Ineos are trying to create future stars. They're trying to create the next crop of world-class players. And we can see that. Xerxes, Lenny Yoro, Manuel Ugarte, like these could all be the next big players, couldn't they? They might not, but yeah, it's a very different philosophy. And I rate it. I like it. I'm way more excited about what's going on. What else have we got? Somebody says, I like how calm you are. Thank you. I mean, the thing is, right? There's so many people doing YouTube and everyone presents in a different way. And I think there's enough people who like different people. Does that make sense? Like, I'm not really getting my words out right, but everyone has a different presentation style. Some people will like how I present shows, some people won't, and that's fine. You know, you're entitled to your opinion. If you enjoy it, I appreciate you, and I appreciate all of your comments and your positivity. And if you don't, that's completely fine. There's plenty of other channels out there to cater for your needs, and that doesn't mean that I'm saying you should watch me. I'm just genuinely saying, like, I appreciate all of you who enjoy, and if you don't, that's obviously fine. There is plenty of other people out there who might suit. Eptan says, do you think we're still going to go for Zubimendi? Zubimendi, I think you mean. I don't know, to be honest, mate. I don't know. I think Manuel Ugarte's way too advanced at this stage. I think Ugarte will be the next signing. I wouldn't be surprised if we get the here we go for him today or tomorrow. We'll wait and see. Right. I'm going to wrap the video up here, though. It feels like a good time. I usually do like 40 minutes, but there's been lots of good conversation this morning, and I like to answer questions, and I like to have engagement and communication. So, yeah, I hope you don't mind if it was a bit of a longer one. But I will be back at 1:30, and then there will be a live show at 6. So make sure you smash a like if you've enjoyed today's video, guys. That could be your way of saying thank you. I would really, really appreciate it. And make sure you subscribe as well if you're new. Everyone's welcome. We have great chats here every day. So, yeah, if you did enjoy today's show, please do subscribe. Drop a comment, leave a like, maybe tell a friend about the channel, whatever. Anything you can do to support is always appreciated. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you again for spending your morning with me. This has been Daily Red Devil, and I'll speak to you all